there is AI editing, and then it pretty much posts itself with AI transcribed descriptions. So it's pretty ridiculous how little actually needs to be done to get the podcast ready to go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Automated Lawyer Podcast. I am one of your hosts, John Fritz. I'm also joined with my co-host, Dan Sherbush. Dan, what's going on today?
How's it going, John? I'm doing pretty good today. We're recovering from a kid's birthday party yesterday. We had like 14, I think, 3 to 7-year-olds in the house, and that is a lot of children.
Yeah, I feel like we're in that zone right now of kids' birthday parties, and they're just kind of nonstop. I don't know if all of the birthdays kind of group in the summer, but yeah, similarly on my end.
Yep, but it's always good fun. Part of it comes with the package when you have as many children as I do. But I understand we're talking about apps, no code automation. How do you extend your system? Do you have any initial thoughts on that, John?
I mean, when it comes to, automation and tech and, especially those law firms that are starting out with not a whole lot of automation or talking between systems, I think that Zapier is one of the easiest, best ways to start. Even with the new AI tools within Zapier, where you basically, instead of having to build your own connection manually, now you simply say in plain English what you want to do, and it builds a workflow for you, which actually works pretty well. I'm a huge Zapier fan.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff going on right now. So why don't let me back up for a minute, and I guess what I want to do is kind of set the stage for people a little bit about what we're talking about. I'm sure there's people listening. They're like, I don't even know what the heck Zapier is and make.com and all that. So many people I think are familiar with, your case management system. Maybe you've got Clio or MyCase or Filevine or whatever it is. Hopefully, at least if not yet, maybe listen to this show, you'll get there. But a lot of these tools are out of the box, right? There are all kinds of things that they don't do that you might want to do. Or like you said, you might want them to talk to your other software. Like let's say you have your CRM where you're collecting your lead. Maybe that's not the same software that you're using to process your cases. And historically, you could hire a brilliant developer to kind of write the code to connect these things together. But today you don't need to do that in most cases. If you have a modern tool, there's a good chance that it has a way of connecting to other software without needing any code. And there are all kinds of these platforms out there that kind of serve as these middlemen bridge platforms. Zapier is by far the most popular, but there are a bunch of other ones out there too, like make.com and Bardeen. Pipedream is one of them. There's a whole bunch of them though, and they all perform similar functions of connecting software together. But Zapier is very, very popular, and it's very, very easy to use for people who aren't super technical. I use Zapier, I use make.com, and I use them a lot for so many different things. I mean, moving data from our CRM to our operations and automating things. But the biggest thing that I tell people who are getting started in it is they think of it like, well, it's really nice to automate my calendar software to push contacts into my CRM and stuff. And that's great. But it really should be thought of more broadly than that. I think of it more as a way of extending your software and making your stuff do stuff that it wouldn't otherwise do, like mailing documents or faxing documents or things like that. That's kind of how I conceptualize the role of tools like Zapier and what they can do is just extending what you got to really tailor stuff to your exact business. Really cool stuff.
And I think an easy way to start out, if someone's out there that's saying, hey, I'm not really familiar, or I kind of want to wade into the water when it comes to Zapier and whatnot, I think the easiest thing to do is look at your current tech stack, right? What are you using for a CRM? Do you have a leads management? Or are you using, the different programs that you're currently using, right? How do we get those to talk to each other better, right? Or just to start talking to each other if they're not, is an easy way to start. And using Zapier to basically push data between systems, right?
Yeah.
And then I think once you get your tech stack aligned to where you think like, okay, here's a great foundation of my practice or my law firm, then it's how do I use Zapier once I've kind of connected everything? How do I use it to take it to the next level of adding on kind of ancillary services that I think that you actually introduced me to the idea of using Zapier to do mailings, which was awesome. Being able to zap data from your CRM into your mailing system and then automate mailings. That's kind of a next level use of it, but there's so many other different things you can do like that to help make things easier and save time.
Yeah, and you had mentioned before the show when we started talking about how are we using automation just for this podcast? Like, how are we even running this? How are we getting people to when we start scheduling people, how are we doing that? And once we actually get to like editing and publishing, what does that look like? At this point, we've got it, the vast majority of that flow almost entirely automated, or at least heavily powered by AI. So I don't know if it'd be interesting to kind of go in what level of detail, but it's really not that complicated. Our podcast flow basically works like this. So we record in a tool called Squadcast, which is how John and I are talking to each other right now. It is a remote recording platform that's included with a package through a tool called Descript, which is a video and audio editing platform and has a lot of awesome AI tools. So basically we finish talking and we push it into the editor. I tell the AI to make some edits. It'll chop things up, cut out any extra words that don't need to be there, and can do a bunch of other things, add captions, and it can also repurpose content. So like taking a long form podcast and chopping it up into little pieces for like TikTok or Instagram or whatever. And then we can download those into a Google Drive folder. And I've built an automation. This one's actually in make.com, but you can do the same thing in Zapier. As an example of how powerful these things can be, what the Zap does is it detects a new MP4 file in the Google Drive folder. It then converts that to an MP3 through a tool called Cloud Convert, which is just an API. That's all it does, is it lets you convert file types to other file types. And it moves the MP3 file into OpenAI's Whisper API. So that's just through, and this sounds more complicated than it is. It's just a node in Zapier where you type in
You lost me
OpenAI.
halfway through it already.
Wait, what was that?
I said you lost me halfway through. Keep going though.
Oh yeah, it sounds more complicated than it is. You just have a little OpenAI node that converts the audio into text, and then the text goes into ChatGPT to create a marketing post, and then it goes out to social media scheduler. So it's a couple of steps, but it's all about understanding those pieces and what can I do with this piece? Where, I have this input data, what do I need to do with it to make it useful, and just understanding some of those pieces. And you can really do some crazy stuff. So that's kind of our flow there is AI editing, and then it pretty much posts itself with AI transcribed description. So it's pretty ridiculous how little actually needs to be done to get the podcast ready to go.
And I love how you use the word we throughout that. We created this workflow and we are using it, and realistically, it was obviously all you that kind of created the workflow and then put all these pieces together into this really amazing puzzle. I mean, when I saw that text from you that laid it all out, I was like, dear God, this is good stuff. And I'm wondering, my first thought that came into my mind was, I wonder how much time people are spending out there right now that have their own podcasts that are either paying somebody to manually do this stuff or they're just doing it themselves, right? And how many people out there could benefit from some sort of workflow that you kind of put together within probably a couple of hours?
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy what you can accomplish now. If all this sounds foreign, keep listening and join the Legal Tech Collective Facebook group. And you can ask any questions you have because there are people out there who can help if you get stuck. That's one of the biggest things that I have gotten a ton of value out of since I started my firm. A lot of people ask, how are you going to get mentorship and make sure you're not making mistakes and commit malpractice? And it's like, well, the resources out there, the communities out there online for learning, not just tech, but just how to be a lawyer generally, how to run a law firm generally. The communities out there are amazing, like the Lawyer on the Beach community and the Maximum Lawyer community. Wonderful, wonderful places to learn stuff on all things law practice, but also in the tech space.
Yeah, Maximum Lawyer Facebook group and the Inner Guild. I've been a member of them for a while, and they're just absolutely phenomenal. The things that they're doing when it comes to helping people, and like you said, the resources are really amazing to be able to bounce ideas and all that sort of stuff. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about our top 3 Zaps and what that looks like for you, for your number one Zap that you like right now, or just something that you think would help other people. And then we'll go back and forth and talk about some of the cool Zaps we've created to help streamline our practices.
Sure. Start us off, John. What's your number one favorite Zap?
Okay, so this is one I introduced about 6 months ago. not only am I obsessed with my client experience, and I talk about that all the time, an unbeatable client experience, right, is my focus. But when it comes to the very beginning of that experience, when clients first call into the firm, right? We talked about how important that is to basically convert as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible. So when a client calls in, a new deal is created in Pipedrive, so our leads management. So we have a zap from JotForm where JotForm zaps the information once it's submitted over into Pipedrive and creates a new lead. The zap that I really like and that I introduced recently was as soon as a new deal is created, that automatically texts the client and says, "Hey, client, thanks for reaching out. An attorney is currently reviewing the details of your matter. Please go to your email and check out the booklet titled What to Do When a Loved One Passes Away." Okay. It's our very nice put together PDF that there's checklists on what to do. There's information about Missouri probate, the different types of probates. There's an inventory sections where they can actually fill out start inventorying the assets, et cetera. So the email automatically goes out as well simultaneously, but zapping in that text. So it automatically texts them. So then they look at their phone and go, "Oh, I just talked to them. They've already reached out to my phone. And now I'm going to go to my email and check out these materials to kind of push the client along in the conversion process."
Yeah. It's just amazing to point out how much value was added to the client experience from a fully automated process that takes so much work off your plate, off your team's plate. In many cases, the clients are coming into this more informed. They feel like they know better what's going on through the process. The legal industry is so opaque to a lot of people. They just don't understand the steps involved. And for most people, it's the first time they've been through any kind of legal thing at all. So getting some kind of onboarding glide path and being able to automate that so everybody gets the same experience. Like, it's not like, oh, I remember I had this conversation with Jane during her consult, but did I talk to Jim about it? And did I use the right words? Did I forget to cover anything? Well, now you're able to, make sure everybody gets the same educational experience and informational experience along that. I think that's awesome.
Yourself.
I have too many zaps and things to count, but I do have a few that are a lot of fun and generate a lot of value for us. So one of the more complex, but also more powerful zaps we have at the firm is we both do probate. One of the things that happens in a probate case when a representative is being appointed is we get an email from the court that says like letters of administration were granted or letters testamentary were granted, hopefully, when our client is awarded the ability to serve. Okay, so we have a zap that detects that email. We see that email come in and Google, Gmail, or whatever finds that email based on a search filter. And then it runs through a sequence where it extracts the information out using ChatGPT. So we know what the cause number was. We know what the deceased person's name was. We know the link to the case. We have all this other stuff. We know what happened. We know that letters were issued. Then the Zap finds the correct case in our practice management system, Airtable, based on the cause number. So we know to attach it to the correct case. It moves the case along in the pipeline stage. So now we've moved it along. It sends an email and a text message to the client with a template letter that gets generated automatically in the same Zap. It also generates an accounting spreadsheet template that we have in Google Sheets that we put together that just lets people track their income and expenses of the estate and anything they want to get reimbursed for. And the email and text also sends them the hyperlink to that where it says, hey, please keep track of anything you spend here so we can keep good, careful records of what's going in and out and all that. And it just does all this in one flow. And so we're moving the case along, notifying the client, setting up the file, moving some other documents around, all in one flow. It's one of the most complex, but also most powerful. Very proud of that extension. And I think every time that runs, it probably saved 2.5 hours or something like that for our team.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's a number of steps and the complexity is pretty amazing, especially being able to simply read emails and then it pushes into a process that does 5 or 10 things. It is pretty awesome. So I love that. I love that use of your Zap. All right, so let's go on to my number 2, one that I kind of created recently, or at least maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, or a little bit longer. So we use Pipedrive for our leads management. And Pipedrive is a Kanban boards where you can see all of your deals on one screen and you have your different columns and everything. So we love that for the leads management. And we use Filevine for our case management system. Problem with Filevine is they don't have a visualization board that you can visualize all the cases at once, right? And move them around into different places. see what column they're in, which you can do. But I like to see, I'm a very visual person. I like to see everything on one screen. So what I basically did was used a series of, I think it's probably 8 or 10 zaps of creating a new pipeline in Pipedrive. And so then basically every deal or every actual project that's in Filevine is created automatically in Pipedrive. And then when they actually move phases in Filevine, it actually jumps the phases in Pipedrive. So I've created a board of being able to do that visualization through all my active cases. So I have my new leads pipeline, and then I have active cases pipeline that shows all my cases within Filevine. I can say, okay, here we have, 5 cases in the client portal checklists, for example. What are
Yeah.
we doing to push these forward? It's a great tool to use for project management, especially when you're having your, Teams call and whatnot. So
Yeah. And that's the powerful use case there is synchronizing data between different places and getting things, if you may have multiple platforms that you need to keep things up to speed on, tools like Zapier and Make.com are extremely powerful for data synchronization. So if you've got something moving through a stage in one file, making sure it's also moving in the other one. We had a bunch of that set up for a while when we were using Lawmatics and Monday.com together. And fortunately now we're at the point where our CRM and our operations are pretty much distinct. Once the onboarding and sales process is over, everything pushes into operations and it doesn't have to talk back and forth anymore. Thank goodness, because it was a little harder for me to maintain. But now we've got a
yeah,
clean break. And data synchronization is definitely a powerful use case. I guess number 2 at our firm is a simpler one, and that is just setting up your folder structure. So if you use a different or alternative case management type system, like let's say you use Monday or Asana or, ClickUp or Airtable or SmartSuite, something like that, they often don't set up a native folder structure for you in Box or Google Drive or wherever you're storing your documents. And one of the awesome things you can do with Zapier and Make.com is to set up that folder structure and then connect it back to the case. So we have a simple zap that when our CRM converts a file, basically what it does is it checks Google Drive to see if we already have a folder. And if we don't, it sets up a new client folder. And then it checks if there's a matter by that name. And if there's not, then it creates the new matter. And depending on what kind of case it is, it will generate a different set of folders that we can store documents in. And then my favorite part is at the end of the Zap, it takes the Google Drive folder link and puts it back in our project management system in a field. So that in the future, if we want to click a button and jump right back into the folder, we've got it right there. But more importantly, if we want to automate in the future, and let's say we want to generate some documents a month later, but we also want the generated documents to automatically go into the client folder, well, now all we have to do is pull that URL back out of the file, and there we go. Anything we generate, we can drop right back into Google Drive in the right folder. So it's very, very powerful, simple, but very, very powerful for like expanding on the automation use cases down the line. Setting up your folder structure automatically. Very, very cool stuff.
yeah, and having that folder structures, I think is really important for just organization and not having to obviously manually do it, but having the different folders for each different project type is really great. Files don't get lost. You're never having to search through multiple things. You don't have a bunch of documents just in one giant folder, right? It cuts down on time when it comes to looking for documents as well. My number 3 and final one for this episode is much more simple, Zap, but we were having a lot of marketing silos when it comes to our website forms, Gravity forms on our website. We had different online marketing stuff that would come in, whether it was from Google or whether it was from, a Google vendor or a directory listing, something like that. All these different forms where we would get an email, oh, you have a new lead here, right? So I'm constantly getting emails and I'm constantly forwarding those out to our intake specialist, right? Or basically an auto forward. But what we did was to simplify everything was to just connect all of our different forms and different leads management platforms to push every single lead into one spot, right? A very centralized location within Pipedrive. Pipedrive has basically leads and then deals, right? So leads is this a legitimate thing or not? We have to filter these out. And then for them to get into the deal phase, it's an actual case that we want to work on or something that's very close to our wheelhouse. Has to be probate, anything in the probate space, decedent's estates. It'll make it into the deals. But we wanted to basically zap everything into the leads. And that way we kind of have a standardized workflow for dealing with those new leads, right? We have templated responses to all of our leads to where we can either click a button to send that response out or to even send a kind of a closing. Unfortunately, this is not our case or what we're willing to handle, but here's a good referral for you type thing. So we have all that templated. So then you're basically looking at a lead and you're clicking at the follow up with an automated template. And then, or if it's a case that we want to talk to the client and schedule a consultation, you click a button to convert it to a deal automatically, and then it creates that deal, and then it runs all those workflows and automations that when a new deal is created. So I think it's really important to have, and again, it all comes back to the kind of the data, synchronization across the platforms. But in this particular case, getting all this different data from different areas into one specific area to make it all uniform going forward.
Yeah, I think that's another great use case for tools like Zapier and Make is that your leads information is not coming in from the same place. You've got people calling in, you've got people submitting lead forms, you've got stuff coming in from all over the place, but you want everybody to have the same client experience in a perfect world, right? You don't want to have the email people getting a different workflow or a different response than the people who call in. We want them having the same onboarding packet. We want them getting the same experience. And without a no-code way of getting everybody's data into the same place, it's very tricky to do that. So in my opinion, learning to use Zapier on a basic level, and if you're at a point in your practice or in your business where it's not worth your time to fuss with that, finding somebody who can help you on these sorts of things, because there's just so much power in this space for really customizing software to your exact needs and use cases that really is never going to be there from these giant tools. Because the reality of the economics of software development is that companies like Lawmatics and Locus, in my case, and Clio and all that, they build to a market segment. They build to the average attorney. It's not possible for them to develop the right system for John Fritz in St. Charles, Missouri, who does probate and complies with St. Charles County's local or St. Louis County's local rules. Who's going to have the development resources to do that? The answer is the only person is you and your firm.
Yeah.
And fortunately, today, the technology is so good for making that easy and cost effective to do that localized, fully tailored automation processes. It's a great time to be in law and tech right now.
100%. Could not agree. Let's talk about your number 3.
Sure.
Are we on 2 or 3 for you?
For me, we're on number 3. So there's so many great ones, but I'll stick with one that's real easy that integrates both Zapier and AI, and that is a basic Google review responder. So, if you're doing a good job of generating Google reviews at your firm, and hopefully you are, follow-ups and getting emails out there and asking for those reviews, one of the things that I forget to do all the time, or was forgetting to do all the time, is a review would come in, but SEO, Google likes it when you're responding to your reviews. People who are reading reviews like to see that you're responding to reviews because they like to see that you're engaged and responding to the feedback that you're getting. And the easiest way to do that is to write a simple Zap. The first step is new Google review. The second step is ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude or whatever. Set up your ChatGPT account if you don't have one yet. And write a little prompt in the Zapier node that just tells ChatGPT about your business. We're a law firm in St. Charles, Missouri, and here's the people that we have at our firm. Here's the type of work we do, and here's how I want you to respond. You can practice with that for a little while. Try a couple different prompts, tweak it until you like the way that it sounds. And, once you're happy with that, you can do all kinds of things. You can have it immediately respond back with a third node that just says post back to Google review reply. If you're real comfortable with the AI completely handling your review responses. Or a very simple solution, if you want to review them first, is just shoot them into a Google Sheets or something like that. So you can monitor the output before it goes out. Very easy to do. Takes one more thing off your plate that once it's done, you never have to worry about it again. Ours now is at the point that the responses are supernatural sounding. They're connected to each other. So the bot knows what the last response it wrote was. So they never sound the same. It's just one less thing that you ever have to worry about. That's the beauty of no-code automation.
I wonder, I assume that your reviews are similar to mine that are usually very nice and all 5 stars, right? I'd be curious to see what would happen if somebody clicked on Schnurbush Law to give a review and they were talking about a different law firm, right? It was the wrong firm review, but they said some very ugly things about you guys, or my firm or vice versa. And then just to see how your chat GPT prompt would respond to that. That would be
Well,
to see.
yeah, my prompt right now, it has some stuff in there about, if you get a negative review, here's what I want you to do. And it talks about,
Okay.
it'll respond very compassionately and provide them with contact information to get directly in touch with their attorney, with the attorney. Now, I hadn't considered the possibility of what if it's somebody who wasn't even a client and they accidentally
Yeah.
gave us a bad review. That's something that, if you're going to fully automate it and not have any human intervention in that process, you probably want to have something crafted into the prompt. But that's the beauty of large language models, is they can handle a whole lot of very detailed
Yeah.
instruction and execute them correctly. It's incredible.
Yeah, and it's getting just better and better with the updates with ChatGPT. It seems like every month there's a new push. That push comes out that it's just next level each month. All right, we're getting closer to time here, so let's do our tech tip of the week. For this week, I wanted to kind of, instead of giving a specific tech tip of like a hey, use this software, or Zapier, or something along those lines, I wanted to kind of give a broader tip of, if you're in the stage right now of considering a new tech piece to introduce into your tech stack for your law firm or your business. If you're saying, hey, we have a CRM. I never thought of having a separate leads management system, right? So you've gone down that path of asking other people about what to use or what they use and kind of done the investigation work. Once you've kind of boiled it down into one or two platforms, don't waste the time of not taking action. The whole paralysis by analysis thing it's real when it comes to making those decisions, especially when it comes to tech, because there's so many different shiny objects every week, right? Oh, is this new one that came out? Is it going to be better than the one that I've selected for my firm, right? I would say put the research in, but once you've come down to one or two, make a decision and just move forward with it. Start implementing it, get it into the system. You could always add, you can always supplement with Zapier and other pieces of tech out there. It just makes sense, like I said, to take action, get the piece introduced into your law firm, because it will take time to introduce it, to get it up and running. And then at least you have something to kind of a foundation to work with for that particular thing. If it's leads management, you've gotten something to start, right? I feel like there's a bunch of lawyers out there that are constantly asking the same questions about the same tech stack. Like, just pick something, start working with it, and then go from there, right? So that's kind of my tech tip of the week.
Sure. So my tech tip this week is going to be geared. I want to gear this one a little bit more toward our more advanced listeners. And that is, if you, let's say you're working on Clio, you're working in my case or Filevine or Lawmatics or Locus, and you're thinking, is there a better way? Is there even better way that I could get all this stuff set up? And I want to talk high level about, conceptually, my tip is focus on data structure. Don't forget about data structure. Understand data structure. And what do I mean by that? What is a data structure? So behind every platform, behind my case, behind Clio, Lawmatics, is a database. And the part that you're playing with is the interface, is the front end. You're just manipulating the database, the information on the back end, through this beautiful little portal that the developers have created for you. But if you really are interested in driving serious automation, you gotta, and this ties directly in with this stuff about Zapier and Make, you gotta have a good data structure. Your matters need to be connected to your contact record. And in every basic case management system, you'll see that. I open up the Jones matter, and there I can see the client record. I can see the 5 errors attached to the file. But the main problem that you see a lot with these kind of big market platforms is that they don't give you good access to the database. Like if you're using Zapier, if you're using Make, it's really hard to find stuff in the system and get that data into your automation. Everything changed for me when I started to understand the importance of having a good data structure. We built that out in a tool called Airtable, but you can build it out in any kind of databasing system. For no-code tools, you've got stuff like Airtable or Notion or SmartSuite that are database-first no-code structures where you can put the whole system together however you want, matters, contacts, records, assets, whatever, and it opens up a whole new world of automation because you can bring in any data you can possibly imagine into any automation. So you can create these ridiculous workflows. Think about data structure as you're getting to if you're trying to squeeze out more efficiency, more value out of your system. For those more advanced listeners, you might be a little further down the line. Think about restructuring your data in a way that lets you access it easily and redeploy it at any point throughout the case's life cycle. It can really be a major game changer.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that, and I feel like that's, like you said, geared towards our advanced listeners, but I think, once you get into one of the standard case management systems, Filevine or Clio or any of those, you get a certain point where you're like, "I have this data set, like, I can't get access to. I wanna pull this data out and push it somewhere," right? And then you start seeing kind of the limitations within that platform itself, right? And that's kinda where I am, and, my team told me I can't make any more, tech, changes for the rest of the year, so I'm sticking with that. But I think that once you've outgrown or at least out-automated your tech stack and you have the time and capabilities to build something out new, I think that 100% you should definitely follow the data structure and pay attention to that when you're finding that next level, the open playground of where you can build from scratch to make sure that you're not gonna have that data limitation like you did in your prior platform.
Yeah. And if all that is just foreign mumbo jumbo nonsense to you, just keep listening and we'll keep getting into interesting stuff. And hopefully the more you listen to the show, the more you get into the communities and keep learning. Before long, a lot of this will start making sense.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate it this week, Dan. Good insights, and looking forward to our episode next week.
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate it, John. I will talk to you next week. See you later.
Sounds great.